Alright lads, my name is the Metagoblin and welcome to a countdown which shall list some of the forgotten features and quirks of World of Warcraft. Some of these were removed or changed due to them being an inconvenience to the player. However, I missed some of the features because I made the game a bit more immersive, challenging and strategic. The first thing on the list is dungeons. Before patch 3.3, the Fall of the Lich King, there basically never used to be a matchmaking queue system for dungeons or raids, or anything at all really. If you wanted to do a dungeon while leveling up, usually you would speak in the general chat of the zone to try and find a group. Other times you would group up with your guildmates and travel for like nearly an hour to reach the Scarlet Monastery, for example, if you played Alliance. And this is why summoning stones were put into the game. Two people would run to the dungeon and summon the rest. I have a few fond memories of leveling in the Hellfire Peninsula, always keeping a close eye on the general chat for a Hellfire Ramparts group because you knew one run would gain you a level. An extremely immersive feature which should be re-implemented back into the game are class quests. As a warlock, if you wanted to unlock the next demon, you didn't just learn it in your spellbook. You had to go and kill it in the world and drain its soul and then perform a ritual to learn the spell, to learn how to summon it. They were basically a lot like the legendary quest lines which are out now, and they kind of gave you a bit more of a lore and story about your class. The keyring is another thing I miss about the game before they completely removed keys from the game, since people were just using a matchmaking system to jump into dungeons, so keys were kind of pointless. But there basically used to be an extra bag slot where your keys were stored. These could give you access to dungeons, raids or certain events, but the feature was obviously removed because it was slightly irritating to have to go through a complete quest chain to unlock a dungeon. But it kind of gave a bit of background lore of a dungeon, and it felt a bit more like you were part of the story. You know, rather than dungeons just being an area where you grind stuff and you get XP. There used to be a different World of Warcraft before the fall of Cataclysm. When the expansion came out, Blizz decided to redesign the level 1 to 60 zones. They were completely re-landscaped and the quest chains were revamped. In my opinion, it was a bit of a pointless move since most people just use the dungeon finder to level up anyway. But there you go. I mean, a lot of things were different, like South Shore used to be a really big Alliance questing hub. And certain zones were only accessed at certain level. Eastern Plaguelands was like level 55 to 60, for instance. Everything was a little different. There used to be a much better talent system before MoP came out, which was more customizable than the free option system that we have today, which is just immensely boring, I find, but anyway, it's just my opinion. People used to come up with crazy crossbreed classes, and everyone was a little unique compared to each other, and it required you to strategically think about the talents you chose. I remember in my DK, back when Frost was actually the tanking spec, I used to put points in every spec, like Unholy Blood and Frost, to gain over defensive bonuses. There never used to be a queue system for Battlegrounds in your interface. You couldn't just open the Battleground interface and queue. When they were first released, you basically had to travel to that Battlegrounds location on the map and enter a portal, a bit like entering a dungeon. They actually still function today. They're in the world still. You can go to them, and when you jump into Portal, it puts you in a queue. I think that's pretty cool. After that, you had like Battleground Masters inside each capital city, but you still had to go to them and speak to them to get into a Battleground. Soul Shards is a feature I don't miss when playing a Warlock. Basically, if you wanted to summon any demon other than the Imp as a Warlock, then you had to consume a Soul Shard, which were only obtained by killing mobs with your drain life spells. Actually an item that was put in your bag as well. Warlocks even had unique soul shards, soul shard bags to store them. And if you wanted to go raiding, you had to farm a load of mobs before you could even jump into the raid. It was really irritating. And sometimes you don't have a soul shard and you really want to summon your demon, and it just got really, really irritating. I'm glad that is gone. The pet happiness system is another immersive feature I quite miss. A hunter's pet could either be unhappy, happy or very happy, or something like that anyway, and the happier your pet was, the more damage you did. You could increase your pet's happiness by feeding it with food, like in your bags, like an actual item, and you would make it sad if you let it die. This was a minor inconvenience to hunters, but I still think it was a cool feature which should be brought back. Perhaps when you feed your pets different kinds of food, they gain different abilities or cosmetics. Naxxramas used to be at the back of Stratholme and not in Northrend before Wrath of the Lich King came. If you wanted to go raiding, you first had to complete the dungeon, and it was a case of a lot of other raids, like Blackwing Lair. You actually had to go through the dungeon, to get into the raid, because Blackwing Lair is at the back of the old Upper Blackrock depths. You know, and you basically you can actually see these dungeons, like the dungeon to there's a dungeon in Strathholm. There's a portal in Strathholm which would have led you to the old Naxxramas, and it's actually still in the game. If at the end, basically go left before the last boss, you click that gate and it opens, but the second one doesn't open, but you can see a green raid portal, and it's still actually there in the game. You can go and see it right now. Weapon skill. This is another irritating thing that was in the game. Basically, if you wanted to get 100% hit chance, which if you didn't have the hit cap, it wasn't 100% anyway, you basically had to maximize your weapon skill, which acted like a profession. The only way to increase the skill was to endlessly hit mobs until the skill was maxed, and like one hit would increase the skill by 1. So you had to like do that about 400 times. It was just horrible. I have like a feat of strength for my achievements this thing called the Master of Knuckles, because I punched mobs like 400 times to master my unarmed skill, and you couldn't even use. There's like no point of having an unarmed skill, because you can, you know, they didn't get any benefit from not using weapons, but it was still an unarmed skill for some reason. It was mental. Now I'm going to finish off with a few quick ones. So, there wasn't always such thing as battlegrounds in the game, actually, until the patch 1.5, and this is where World PvP effectively died, if you're looking for an answer to that question. Anyway, Zul'Aman and Zul'Gurub, before Cataclysm, actually used to be vanilla raids. You used to get your 60% movement speed mount at level 40. Yeah, quite harsh. I hated it. I remember when it got put down to level 30, and I was level 30 at the time, so I could just get on my mount, and I was happy about that. There never used to be such thing as a dual talent system. Came in at Wrath of Lich King kind of time. Druids only once had 3 specs. Feral was tanking and DPS spec. Hunters used to actually have melee abilities and could only use their ranged abilities out of melee range. So if you're in melee range of a hunter, they couldn't use any of their abilities, which is really irritating. To learn a weapon, you had to purchase weapon training from a weapon master. Before Wrath of Lich King, there was no achievement system. There's no Xbox Live achievement system. Before Cataclysm, if you wanted to complete a quest, you had to actually read where you had to go on what you had to do, because there's no help system. Basically, the quest would tell you travel to the northeast, right? It would tell you that, and you'd have to try and find it. Questing took a long time, which is one of those quest helper add-ons, which is why they kind of just implemented it into the game anyway. Anyway, classes once required different reagents for different abilities. Like, for instance, a paladin once required like these blessings of the king or blessings of wisdom to actually do their buffs, like Blessing of the Kings. You know, but it was basically these little marks that you could buy from a reagent vendor. It was so irritating. And on my Death Knight, I had to buy like corpse dust to actually summon my ghoul. There's loads of quirky, horrible stuff like that. Obviously, there are plenty of others, lads. At the end of the day, you know, this list could go like well over 100. If there's any that I've missed, then feel free to share them in the comment section. Perhaps you really missed a delete feature and you'd like to share it with us all. Also, you know, which top 10 video would you like to see next on this channel? I mean, just leave a request in the comment section. Anyway, lads, my name is the Meta Goblin, and until my next video, ciao!